All right, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you enjoyed your lunch. Again, I'm Marty Durbin, Executive Vice President of API, and want to once again welcome you to our third annual State of American Energy Address. As a reminder, you do have cards at your table that were with your reports. If you would like to write out any questions, those will be collected once the presentation is underway. We'll use those during the Q&A period. And for those of you that understand how to do it, the hashtag for the event is SOAE 2013. Okay. So again, today's remarks, our President and CEO, Jack Gerard, is going to discuss the unique and foundational role that America's oil and natural gas industry plays in our economy, to America's workers, and to our future. But first, what we want to do is share with you a very brief video in which employees from the industry actually share some of their own stories about how they're taking part in investing in our state of American energy.
Hi, I'm Rich Adams of Enbridge in Duluth and Superior, and the oil and natural gas industry is investing in America. Over the last 4 or 5 years, we've added over 200 employees in the Duluth Superior area, and over that time period, we've added in the thousands in indirect employees.
I'm Sue Murray. I work in the Duluth Superior area. I'm paid well, I have good benefits, and I've furthered my children's education, and we've lived comfortably. But it's not just happening here, it's happening all over the country.
I have a great job, I have great benefits and great family. I want to be here every day. I want to come here every day and do the best I can do because I know it makes a difference.
1, 2, 3.
I'm Lori Trammell, and American Energy is investing in communities like Hobbs, New Mexico. Hobbs has grown so much here lately that every corner you turn, you almost see somebody in construction mode. The oil and natural gas industry is so important here in Hobbs. People are coming in from everywhere to work here and in the surrounding areas.
What oil and gas does, it provides that base of taxes and that base of economic activity.
I'm Eric Stenson from Superior, Wisconsin, and American Energy is investing in safe operation.
It takes constant vigilance and strong dedication to make sure that safety is the first thing we think of before going into a job and the last thing we talk about when we're finished.
What I'd like people to know is safety takes priority over everything.
They go hands over foot to make sure that we're safe here, and I feel safe working here.
American Energy is investing in technology and the environment. The technology over the past 20 years that I've been with Enbridge has fascinated me.
Over the last 30 years, without the advent of technology, we estimate that we would have achieved the limit to the life of the field. With technology, on the other hand, we envision another 30 to 50 years of remaining life.
If somebody were to come into the office and were to fly on the wall, they would see that a great majority of the day is spent with all the operational folks talking about our environmental programs and how we can make them more efficient.
I'm Sam Cobb, Mayor of Hobbs, New Mexico.
I'm Rich Adams.
I'm Lori Trammell.
I'm Sue Murray.
And I'm proud that the oil and gas industry,
The oil and natural gas industry.
The oil and natural gas industry is investing
in America.
Well, thank you, Marty, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today. We're honored by your presence and greatly appreciate your participation. Happy New Year to each one of you. And I look around the room, I see a number of distinguished guests. In Washington, everybody is distinguished, as we all know. And we'd like to take the time to introduce everyone. However, in the interest of time, we can't do that today. Though knowing, as I look at many of you here today, knowing that many of you have a key role in the energy policy debate, and hopefully what might happen over the next year or two as we consider the truly game-changing opportunity we have here in the United States as it relates to energy, and specifically from our vantage point, the oil and natural gas industry. Before I proceed and share some remarks with you, though, I would like to introduce our friends at the head table here today, and would like to begin with a new great cheerleader of energy that's come to the United States Senate from the state of North Dakota, Senator Heitkamp. Senator, would you stand, please? As I thought about Senator Heitkamp's addition to the Senate, I think I finally found someone who's a bigger cheerleader for North Dakota than I am, and it's you, Senator. Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you. She is truly an expert in the area of oil and natural gas, not only coming from the #2 oil producer in the United States today in North Dakota, but she's also been the tax commissioner in the state and the attorney general, so knows the industry well. So welcome and thank you for being here. Let me quickly go around and introduce some others. Walter Wise, if you'd please stand. Walt is the general president of the Iron Workers Union, who's part of our labor management group at the API. Let me skip over Dot and introduce Doug McCarron. Doug, would you please stand? Doug is the president of the United Brotherhood of Carpenters. We work closely with organized labor at the API. We have 15 unions now. We're working closely together in job creation, economic recovery. And Doug and Walt, thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate it. Two other good friends. Dot, would you please stand? Dot Harris is the director of the Office of Economic Impact and Diversity at the Department of Energy. And we work with Dot as well as Esther Aguilera. Esther, would you please stand? Who's the executive director of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute. And in part of my remarks in a moment, I'll share with you a recent study we've concluded that shows the impact of the oil and gas industry on the minority community and the great benefits we can provide as we watch the changing demographic of the country. So Esther and Dot, thank you for being here today. Now, before I turn to General Jones, let me introduce three of my colleagues. Tom Gibson, the American Iron and Steel Institute. Cal Dooley at the American Chemistry Council. And Dave McCurdy, the American Gas Association. All presidents and CEOs of their respective responsibilities, as you all know, each have had public service. Dave from the state of Oklahoma, Cal from the state of California, and Tom in the administration at the EPA, but keenly involved, particularly from the manufacturing perspective, in the impact of oil and natural gas. Then last and certainly not least, our friend General Jim Jones. General, would you please stand? I think many of you know the General well. He probably needs no introduction as the former National Security Advisor to the President. Very distinguished career in military service throughout the world. And today has a consulting group and also works at the Bipartisan Policy Center, which will be releasing next month, I believe, a significant contribution to the energy debate. So let's give everyone a round of applause, particularly our head table today, for being here with us. Now, with the newly elected Congress and administration that has now started its second term, we stand on the threshold of a new year, one that presents tremendous opportunities to move forward, to build our economy, and to create the jobs for those Americans who are still looking for work. The oil and natural gas industry has been a bright spot over the last few years of sluggish economic growth and listless job creation. And let me say, we are ready to do even more. We have a vision of our country's future that is built on the incredible potential our industry offers to spur more economic growth and help other industries, particularly the manufacturing sectors represented from those we've introduced today. And with greater economic growth comes greater opportunity for workers, particularly those who are trying to find a first job, for retirees who have completed their careers, and also for our nation as a whole. Americans are looking for a new, forward-looking approach that embraces innovation, imagination, consensus, resolve, and a focus on things that work. Energy is fundamental to our nation's economy. In the United States, oil and natural gas supplies most of the energy that we consume to run our lives, our businesses, to transport our goods, to heat our homes, and move our families throughout the day. There is no question that we will need more energy to meet the needs of an expanding economy and to provide for the growing population years ahead. Our oil and natural gas industry will be a vital part of that economic growth. And even as we expand in using more renewable energy and even improve the energy efficiencies which we have today. We need more energy of all type to meet the rising demand of a vibrant country. And we can produce much more of that energy right here at home. The U.S. oil and gas industry is fundamental to our country's future through its investments in energy exploration, investments in infrastructure to safely and responsibly produce, refine, and transport product to provide the energy that we need, through its investments in people, jobs, and communities, and its investments in fuels and innovative technologies. More domestic energy development equals economic growth, job creation, government revenue, and energy security. The USA Today recently looked at how oil and natural gas development was impacting small-town America, perhaps some of those communities that Senator Heitkamp represents. It was fascinating where they concluded that income in, quote, small-town America, end quote, was up over 3.8% since 2007. And energy's foundational role in our employment picture was also evident in the Department of Labor's most recent jobs report, when it reported that the oil and natural gas extraction employment is up 6.5% over the past year. These jobs were created through a resurgence in domestic resources, which can change our energy and economic future. Study after study has shown that we are a resource-rich nation with vast energy assets, both oil, natural gas, along with others, and we have the world's leading refining capability to deliver the fuels and products America's businesses and families need. U.S. oil and natural gas companies are truly investing in America's future through the development, production, and refining of oil and natural gas, and in doing so are opening new opportunities for our economy. In 2011, the United States ranked 159th in the world in terms of GDP growth. And lackluster economic growth attracted a lot of attention during the last congressional and presidential debates. Somewhat overlooked, though, was our country's #1 ranking in natural gas production. The Wall Street Journal reported our #1 ranking was at least partly to the luck of geology, that we have vast resources right here in the U.S., but also to our country's commitment to private investment and the ability for those investors who are willing to take risk with the hope and expectation of achieving a reward. And it's not just in natural gas. The industry producing record amounts of oil today. As many of you know, again, back to North Dakota, the #2 oil production in the states has now surpassed California and Alaska to rise to that great achievement, as well as a refining sector that is the leader in the world. These are the kinds of investments oil and natural gas companies are considering, and which may provide a substantial economic stimulus to our economy every year. In 2011, the industry investment, or stimulus if we will, totaled $545 billion in capital investment, wages, and dividends paid. Think of it. Every 2 years, the oil and natural gas industry provides a stimulus of over $1 trillion to our domestic economy. And those investments continue each year, driving job creation and higher economic activity. This energy stimulus is providing returns all across our country. Oil and natural gas industry investments directly and indirectly support more than $1 trillion in economic activity. And a recent IHS Global Insight study said that lower natural gas prices as a result of this production were lowering our manufacturing costs as well as heating and electricity prices by as much as 10%. This means lower costs for manufacturers and other segments of our economy and lower prices on chemicals, feedstocks based on natural gas and refined products, such as those used in plastics, medicines, agriculture, such as fertilizers. About 1/3 of all the energy produced in the United States is consumed and used by our manufacturers to produce and to ship products that are vital to our way of life. The abundant and affordable supplies of energy from shale, both natural gas and oil, are driving job creation and economic growth clear across the country. Consumers are benefiting from these lower energy costs brought about by the growth and production, specifically of natural gas. IHS Global Insight estimates American households will save on average $1,000 a year through 2012 through 2015 through lower heating and electricity costs. And it went on to conclude that savings could rise to more than $2,000 per year per household by 2035. Producing more domestic energy provides opportunities for the U.S. to increase its exports and to serve new markets. A recent NEAR economic consulting study for the Department of Energy concludes that exporting LNG is a net benefit in all scenarios evaluated, and that more exports increase those benefits. Just a few years ago, as we all know, we were considering LNG terminals to import natural gas to the United States. What a difference just a few short years make. By developing new technologies to access potential new sources like oil shale, which often goes not talked about, we will be able to dramatically increase our energy potential and role as the global energy leader. Oil shale in the western United States today is estimated at 800 billion barrels, which is nearly 3 times the proven oil reserve of Saudi Arabia. As the numbers clearly show, we in the industry are investing in America's future. And we'll be sharing what that means through a new campaign that we are launching over the next few weeks, which will focus on raising understanding of the unique and foundational role of the U.S. oil and natural gas industry and what it means to our economy, what it means for our communities and for America's lives, for government revenue, for refining, and what it means ultimately to job creation and economic recovery. Oil and natural gas companies today support 9.2 million American jobs and could easily support an additional 1.4 million jobs by 2030 through the industry's investments in energy production and refining. Infrastructure investments create new construction jobs almost immediately, while providing job creation benefits for many years to come. Consider, for example, the Keystone XL pipeline, a pipeline that Doug, Walter, and many others are keenly interested in, which would immediately create 20,000 jobs, but the development of the Canadian oil sands for many years yet to come could support hundreds of thousands of jobs over the next few decades. And a new analysis by IHS demonstrates the benefits of jobs from what we typically call the unconventional oil and natural gas development are not limited to the typical oil and natural gas states. Over the past decade, more than 30 states have seen at least a 50% rise in industry-supported employment. From IT to accounting to software development to machines and equipment, companies and workers in every state are supporting the development of the U.S. oil and natural gas industry. And thousands of workers in almost every state are part of this vast network of U.S. companies supporting the development of Canadian oil sands. A recent survey shows that the Keystone XL pipeline alone created employment and activity in 49 of our 50 states. Hawaii, unfortunately, we could not find activity. For those of you who would like to volunteer to help us pursue that further, please let us know after our comments today. The U.S. refining industry alone supports more than 500,000 American jobs with an average income of $95,000 an employee and supports nearly 2% of our gross domestic product. In 2011, China unfortunately surpassed the United States as the world's #1 manufacturer. But we can reclaim that spot if we ensure our own energy revolution continues to gather strength. Manufacturing can and is returning to the United States. Shell, Dow Chemical is represented by Cal, U.S. Steel is represented by Tom Gibson here today, and many others have announced or are considering moving manufacturing back to the U.S. or are planning expansions here at home for the first time in many years. These decisions are driven by the availability of reliable and affordable energy, and by the knowledge that we have a skilled and productive workforce right here at home. The oil and natural gas industry offers tremendous employment opportunities to meet the changing demographics for the African American community and the Latino workers, the issues we've been working on with Esther and Dot over at the Department of Energy. A recent IHS study projected that with pro-development policies, 166,000 new jobs created just in our upstream sector of the industry by 2020 could be held by minority workers, and more than 285,000 new jobs by 2030. Job creation continues to be a key priority for policymakers, for our industry, and for the millions of Americans who are still looking for work. With up to half of our oil and gas industry's technical personnel turning over the next 7 to 10 years, our industry provides an important opportunity to address the challenge of high unemployment. But a key part of that solution, as we all well know, is government policy that enabled the increase of domestic energy production to continue on and maintains a strong domestic refining sector rather than discouraging it. U.S. oil and natural gas companies are providing more than jobs and more than economic growth in areas that often we overlook or don't think about. For example, the success of this industry means enhancing our energy security, our economic security, and our national security. Millions of Americans gain retirement security through shares of oil and natural gas companies held in retirement savings, 401k plans, and pension plans. A study of the largest public employee pension plans, we're talking here now about school teachers, firefighters, policemen, a study of these plans in 17 states showed that oil and natural gas stocks, which on average made up less than 5% of the fund's holdings, contributed as much as 15% to the fund's total gains between 2005 and 2009. A similar look at colleges and universities found more good news. U.S. shares of oil and natural gas company stock boosted the overall performance of public and private university endowments, outperforming every other asset class examined. The 11.5% return between 2001 and 2011 was 326% higher than the average annual 10-year return on all U.S. stocks. This leads to financial security, family security for all Americans. This industry is also among the largest sources of revenue to the government, providing broader financial security for our nation as a whole. As the government's lease sale in the Gulf of Mexico in 2012 illustrates, tremendous revenues flow to government through lease sales, royalty, and bonus bids. Today, the oil and natural gas industry contributes $86 million a day to the federal government. The $1.8 billion that was raised through the federal lease sale offshore in 2012 could significantly increase if the more than 80% of the offshore areas that are currently unavailable were made available for production. Energy access, not taxes, is the key to unlocking new revenue for the government. Energy analysts at Wood Mackenzie found that more than $800 billion additional dollars could be generated through 2030 through access to areas off limits and other pro-development policies. There's a new energy reality for the United States, a reality of vast domestic resources of oil and natural gas. The reality is that our energy supply is no longer limited, no longer foreign, and no longer finite, but is now American and abundant, greatly enhancing our national security. We have a game-changing opportunity to make the U.S. the global leader in energy. If we seize the opportunity now, we will be positioned to lead for decades and realize the economic and energy security benefits of that leadership. The world is watching. Our decision will impact regions around the world, the Middle East and Europe, Asia, and elsewhere. We were encouraged by President Obama's 2012 campaign comments supporting an all-of-the-above agenda on energy and his statements outlining specific support for oil and natural gas production. We need more energy of all types. Even as we dramatically expand renewable energy sources and increase our energy efficiency, fossil fuels will continue to have an important role to play. Not only does natural gas have an increasingly important role in electricity generation, it provides the raw materials needed to manufacture wind turbines, solar panels. It is essential as a backup power to intermittent electricity sources. A future of abundant domestic energy is already being made real through today's oil and natural gas industry investments in cutting-edge technologies to access resources previously thought unreachable. With unconventional resources soon expected to produce the majority of America's energy, we may soon be calling them very conventional. Shale energy development has been a game changer for communities, the economy, and even our environment, as increased use of natural gas has reduced CO2 emissions in the United States to 1992 levels. Since 1990, the industry has invested more than $252 billion in improving the environmental performance of our products, our facilities, and our operations. Between 2000 and 2010, the amount of industry investments in technologies to reduce greenhouse gases was $71 billion. Compare that to the $43 billion spent by the federal government over that same time, compared to all other industries combined, which were just slightly larger than what our industry invested. U.S. refiners have invested more than $137 billion since 1990 in technologies to produce even cleaner fuels and meet the growing variety of state and federal mandates. The complete transition to Tier 2 gasoline is estimated to have resulted in the reduction of tailpipe emissions by cars and light-duty trucks, the equivalent of taking 164 million cars off the road. And through increased efficiency, we are doing much more with less. America uses about half as much energy today to produce a dollar of GDP than it did in 1970. America's oil and natural gas industry has a unique and foundational role in our country, providing the fuels that power our economy, creating jobs, and supporting our national interests through the industries investing in America's future. This is a uniquely American movement. Private investment in domestic oil and natural gas and the technologies to access those reserves has brought us to a turning point that is unmatched anywhere in the world. Not because they don't have oil and natural gas, but because we have brought our entrepreneurial spirit to the energy discussion. To take a chance on new wells, new techniques, and new technologies that provides the energy that supports our way of life. We are at the crossroads of a great turning point in our nation's history to realign the energy axis towards the West and into our own control. North America could become self-sufficient in liquid fuels in 12 short years. And as a potential energy exporter, we can help bring stability to the geopolitics of energy, to say nothing of the positive impacts increased U.S. supply would have on U.S. businesses, workers, and the communities in which we live. These investments and benefits don't occur in a vacuum. As Washington's elected officials and opinion leaders search for common ground on tax policy, fiscal policy, and regulatory regimes, we need to focus on solutions that will support our ability to provide for a secure American energy future. There is room for agreement. We welcome President Obama's campaign promises to support oil and natural gas development as part of a truly all-of-the-above energy strategy. We can offer solutions to some of the most pressing issues that will impact our economic future. Tax reform, infrastructure improvements, leasing and permitting on federal lands, and regulations that don't add unnecessary layers of compliance burdens on top of existing protections. And ensuring regulations won't compromise our ability to grow the economy and create jobs through domestic energy. And there is plenty of work to be done, as we all know. Our economy has struggled to recover. Millions of Americans are still out of work, and millions have stopped looking for work altogether. Geopolitical turmoil resists easy diplomatic answers, and many Americans wonder if Washington can work in a bipartisan manner to solve the most pressing issues of our time. I believe that we can work together. I believe that we must, if we are to ensure domestic energy is available to provide the foundation for revitalizing our domestic economy. Thanks to the vast U.S. energy resources, the oil and natural gas industry stands ready to continue the investments made in jobs, communities, technology, the environment, and safety, while improving America's energy security. We are truly investing in America's future, and we look forward to the opportunity to do more. Thank you very much for your attention. I'd be happy to answer some questions. Thank you. I'm still here.
You stay there. I'll use this mic when I turn it off.
We've reversed the roles today. Can you see?
Is this on now? Okay. I promise I didn't write any of these questions. But I'll ask you a few questions. First is a two-parter. What's the top or the most important thing that Congress can do to help achieve the vision you've laid out here today? And then also, what's the most important thing the administration can do?
Well, I think for both, the first most important thing to do is to do no harm. And what I mean by that is to don't unnecessarily overreact and do anything that would impede or discourage what we see going on state by state all across the country today. All you have to do, and I keep going back to North Dakota because it's one of my favorites, if you look at what happened there over the last decade, no one would have predicted this just a decade ago. Yet today the unemployment rate in North Dakota hovers around 3%, 2.9%. Income for many, particularly our younger individuals that are coming to the workforce, is double what the average income is for the state of North Dakota. There's a huge opportunity there. So we would strongly encourage both the legislature and the administration to first do no harm. We should look at the model of these states, North Dakota, Colorado, Pennsylvania, where thousands and thousands of jobs have been created just over the past few years as a result of this vast resource that we've now uncovered through modern technology. So that would be our first encouragement. The second one is, though, and whoever asked the question and some of the points we laid out today, if we get the policy right, this is a game-changing opportunity for the United States. Not only to make us energy secure as a nation, but we can literally reshape, as many of the reporters in the room have talked about, the geopolitical dynamics of the world. Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and the list goes on. We have the opportunity for the first time clearly in our lifetimes to change that by moving the axis of energy power here to the United States, making us energy secure as a nation, allowing us to create hundreds of thousands of well-paying jobs. This is done by encouraging the economic activity, not by discouraging it through tax policies and overregulation. So do no harm, think positively as what contributions we can make to our society and our economy as a whole.
All right, you've mentioned tax policy a couple of times. Question says, what effect would removal of energy industry subsidies have on domestic energy production and the U.S. economy more generally?
Let me correct the first myth. The oil and gas industry gets no subsidies, zero, none, nothing. What we get are cost recovery measures, much like many other businesses get in the tax code. The impact on the industry by increasing the costs of production and doing business in the United States is not positive. Our economic analysis done by third-party smart people point out that you really have two choices. You can go down the road of allowing the economic activity generating hundreds of billions of dollars to the government by increasing the activity, job creation, new taxpayers, or you can take the alternative route by trying to extract new revenue from the industry by increasing their cost to do business. The opportunity to develop the resource, create new jobs, and generate revenue shows revenues are much higher with this path than they are with punitive tax measures. As I pointed out earlier, today the oil and gas industry contributes $86 million a day to the federal government. Our effective tax rate is 40%. That compares to 26% for other Standard & Poor's industrial companies. We not only pay our fair share, we pay more than our fair share, of which we're happy to do, but allow the industry to do what it does best. Create jobs, generate revenue. That's the way to contribute to the fiscal conversations of the country, the revenue needs and demands, not by discouraging it by punitive tax policy.
Speaking of jobs, the next question says, I'm not from a state where there is natural gas or oil drilling activity. Do the job figures and economic benefits include states and areas without producing wells?
Clearly the answer is yes. And what we found in some of the statistics I've cited here today, and whoever asked the question would be happy to share with you in greater detail what we found. But clearly all across the country, the Keystone Pipeline being a good example, we found new economic activity, job creation in 49 of 50 states just through the one pipeline. Now, when you look at the breadth and scope of our industry, every year contributing $545 billion in capital investment, wages, and dividends, it clearly impacts our entire economy. It clearly impacts every state. I think some would be surprised to know the impact of our industry on states that are considered or not considered traditional oil and gas states. The state of Minnesota, I know one of the new senators came out to North Dakota and saw those Minnesota license plates in the parking lots of everything that's taking place in North Dakota. And you see this clear across the country. The oil and natural gas industry is a very significant investor, and we impact the entire economy, and I think we can show you state by state that impact.
Okay. A little bit of recurring themes here, but only for what I think is our final question. Been a great deal of media about the fact that U.S. could be the world's largest oil producer by 2020, overtaking Saudi Arabia. Some question about what that's based on, but I think more importantly, current land access and production levels, can we actually reach that by 2020, and what would be the biggest hindrances to getting there?
Well, there's a number of answers to that. Let me say first, the comment about achieving number one oil producer in the world by 2020 comes from the International Energy Administration. It doesn't come from the industry, it comes from the experts who look at the industry. And they have predicted if the energy policy of the United States is handled well, we could actually surpass Saudi Arabia as the number one producer by 2020, 8 short years. So the potential exists. The resource in the United States is vast. As I mentioned in my remarks, oil shale alone in 3 western states is 3 times the proven reserve of what Saudi Arabia holds today. The key to it is access, the ability to develop it, define the technologies to extract it for domestic consumption, and even potential export as we look down the road. So the hindrance to us today is to really look at, I believe, governmental policies. All you need to do is look at what the states have done on state and private land. Again, North Dakota being a perfect example. But you can see this in Colorado. You can see it in Pennsylvania. The governor in Pennsylvania talks about creating over 85,000 jobs in 18 months in the state of Pennsylvania. But it's on private and state land. If federal policy mirrored the example and the model of what our governors are doing, it would be a game-changing opportunity. Today, over 85% of the Outer Continental Shelf is still off limits, even for industry to look and to seek to find what's out there. Permitting and leasing onshore, on lands and federal lands in the United States is down. This is where policy really matters. If we do it well, we have the potential to achieve all that's been talked about by experts all around the globe. The United States could really have a game-changing opportunity to perhaps dominate the energy equation for decades to come. But we've got to make the right choices. We have to pursue sound public policies, and by getting those policies right, we can achieve that potential as a nation, put our people back to work, and worry less about some of the geopolitical instability around the world.
So I understand we just got questions from Twitter. I'm not sure what that means, but...
Marty's not our social media guy, can you tell? I'll explain it to you later, Marty.
Yeah. Thanks, Jack. So what are the greatest threats to production and refining of American energy? Well, you've certainly talked about production. And on the refining side, you might want to focus on.
Yeah, in the refining sector, and I see some of our great refiners represented here today, huge opportunity. 500,000 jobs in the U.S. today in the refining sector, which constitutes over 2% of our gross domestic product each year. Today, we meet the demands of our society. We're able to fill those with the great capabilities, modern technologies, and expansion of existing footprints. But we also have potential to be an energy exporter in a very significant way in the long term. We need to look at all these options. We should consider this newfound vast energy resource the same way we would consider any other product that we have in the United States. We need to look to the future and say what policies will make the difference. We could produce more refined product here, make it available around the world. Anything we contribute to the supply equation obviously puts downward pressure on price. But we've got to have the courage to get the policy right. We need to change our way of thinking. For too long, we have approached energy as a matter of scarcity and having finite limitations on it. That's not true anymore, and that dynamic has just changed recently. We should be more thoughtful and understanding that we have a vast resource. We ought to take advantage of it for the benefit of all Americans. Great. Well, I'll close with that. Let me thank you all for being here today, and we look forward to working with all of you as we pursue sound energy policy. And Senator Heitkamp, once again, we look forward to working with you as you show us the North Dakota model for the rest of the country. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it.